What's up, everybody? This is Jason Zombie Collector doing a response video for a giveaway that David Bluejacket 66 is doing. Kind of like Scott's kind of a tradition. I've known about David for a few months. I've seen him pop up on other people's videos doing, comments and likes, and people mention him a lot. I somehow never truly found myself meandering over to his channel, and but everybody's been blowing up his contest, and so I went and started doing the thing that I always do with a lot of people who I have heard about but I never started really watching, is I go back to the beginning. I know a lot of you all know this to be true because you know that I go through your videos, comment, and make likes and loves and all that jazz. And so I think that's a thing that I do that I think a lot of us know about. And so I've been going back through David's channels. I think he started back in maybe June or July of this year, maybe a little earlier. And I've been doing that. And I've been kind of held off on doing the contest because I didn't want to be like a bandwagon guy. But I finally got through enough of his videos so I can get a feel for him that I can say, I want to be like a true fan, enjoy his videos, enjoy what he does. So I decided to tip my hat into the ring, or throw my hat in the ring for this contest. So this is for 250 subscribers. I think he's already at 330 something, or maybe more. So obviously this is done really well for him. And the one thing I also appreciate is this is kind of simple. It's two things. One, who kind of got you into collecting the hobby, and what is another thing that you collect? Pretty straightforward questions. And so mine is kind of be wrapped up together. If you've been any kind of fan, subscriber of my channel, you know that my father is by far my biggest reason why I'm a collector. He used to take me to card shows and shops in the 80s. I remember going with my brother and him to card shows all the time. He would give us like $5, $10, which back in the 80s was a nice little chunk of change, and let us go to town. He taught me the art of the deal before Donald Trump did, about how to wheel and deal collectors and other guys, your friends, anybody with your collection. I have so many great memories. There was one time where I actually had my own card shop at my house. I had cases, and my dad encouraged me to do it. He bought cases for me so I could show off my collection. He let me bring in all these tables from the garage and let me put my cases up so people could come by and look at my collection. I made it to the newspaper about my collection when I was probably like 10 or 11 years old. I was in the local newspaper, the Evening News in Jeffersonville, Indiana. And my dad was like a complete and utter reason for my love for collecting and baseball cards in general. One time he talked, one of the local car shop guys is no longer there. He's passed away. But years ago in New Albany, Indiana, it was called the Trading Post. And they had a card show for local people to come. And my dad let, his 8-9-year-old kid with my brother, who was probably 7 or 8 at the time, and have our own little table and sell baseball cards with all these adults. And my dad kind of just watched from the stands to make sure we weren't getting screwed or whatever. And I mean, just so many great memories. And he's a collector himself, so he collected. The collecting gene didn't go too far. He still collects now. He does auctions, and he was actually involved in auctioneering for a while. So I mean, he's just really had it in his system forever. I went down to my mom and dad's house and over Thanksgiving, and I mean, his collection is just out of control. I mean, it is unbelievable. I mean, it would make a grown man weep. The stuff that he has accumulated over the years, and it's just really cool for sure. So I could go on and on about my dad and collecting, but that's kind of how I got into collecting. There's a couple little side stories I gave Cliff Notes versions for just now that I've never really shared, so hopefully you all enjoy that. And the other thing David asked was, what is another thing that you do? Now, I did mention this in Scotty's video a little bit. I showed different stuff, but one of the biggest things I'm into is films. I would almost say films are almost a bigger passion of mine than baseball card collecting and baseball cards in general. I'm more knowledgeable about films because it's something I've never left. As a hobby, I've never left. Baseball cards have come and gone over the years, as a lot of us discussed at nauseum. But movies, I've never really left. And a little known fact, I used to help run a podcast and website dedicated to film for 2 or 3 years. And I was involved in a moderator for other channels for a long time for films. And so I am I love films in general. But what I was going to try to do is do a couple weave it in and out, make a tapestry of my dad and films. And the first one that came up is Ken Burns' Baseball. I remember sitting in 1994 when it first came out. I was 8th grade maybe, and watching these episodes each week. I believe it came out each week. Inning 1 and all that jazz. And my dad and I would watch this together, and he would of course, because he was born in the 50s, so he spoke a lot about Mantle and Mays and Aaron and Robinson, and he would kind of give me his own anecdotes and memories and stories. And I still ask him today about it, and he would talk to me about the whole, he would put Yogi Berra or whoever's baseball card in the spokes of his bike and ride it around town. And just kind of made it come alive even more than what Ken Burns documentary did. And so that's a huge connection of my past to my present. Another thing is, I'm going to show a handful of stuff like this, is 80s action movies. Here we have Stallone in First Blood. This is the first Rambo movie. And the great thing about this movie here is that this actually happens in America. Stallone gets pushed to the edge, and he decides to finally fight back. And this is here, First Blood, Rambo. And if you follow the series at all, you know that it is a fantastic series. But my dad had no filter in the 80s as well. He was a typical 80s dad, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. He didn't really care what I watched unless it was involving too much nudity or maybe too much gore. He would say no to those two things. But that's about it. And even then, he was kind of the judgment call was a little bit off. He thought, there was not going to be much nudity in the movie, and it was all kinds. Or there wouldn't be that much gore. And if you watch these Rambo movies or any other action movie from the 80s, I mean, there was people being eviscerated left and right. So sometimes the mark missed a bit. So this is another series I loved watching. We watched it with my dad all the time. Another great 90s action series that I liked watching with my dad, and I remember sitting down and getting the VHS back in the olden days, is Darkman, the first one in particular, with Liam Neeson of all people. But Darkman trilogy here, Darkman, that's another one from my childhood that I loved. I remember growing up, and I know Raphael just did this on his channel, Hidden Gem, Kung Fu films. My dad had a poster of Bruce Lee in our garage when I was a kid, and I remember going to the garage all the time and to see this Bruce Lee poster. And my dad would watch Kung Fu films all the time. Between Kung Fu films and Westerns, I feel like two of the genres that you can't get any further away is a John Wayne Stagecoach or Quiet Man or The Searchers or whatever, and Rooster Cogburn to Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and all that stuff. You can't get further, I think, away. And he introduced me to my love of martial arts films and Kung Fu films. And here's a documentary talking about Kung Fu films from the 70s and 80s mostly. And also probably some late 60s, I would say. And I just love movies like this because it's a combination of, I love Kung Fu, I love great action movies, but also reminds me, again, sitting on the floor in front of the TV, right there. I'm the TV's right here, and I'm right here in front of it, watching Kung Fu films or films, and my dad's like, Jason, get out of the way. You're right in front of the TV, move. You're going to ruin your eyes. Hence why I have these glasses now. So those are some good memories of that. And then talking about more martial arts Kung Fu films, Chuck Norris, Good Guys Wear Black. My dad was a huge Chuck Norris fan also, and I have tons of memories of missing in action movies. This movie in particular, Oh shoot! Now I'm trying to think of some other movies that he did. Now all of a sudden I'm like, it's escaping me. Man, I cannot believe I'm not remembering some of his other movies. Lone Wolf McQuay. There we go. That's the movie I was thinking of. But anyways, all kinds of films. He shows up and obviously in Enter the Dragon at the end with Bruce Lee, and you know he does such great films. I just love Bruce Lee movies, and that's another one from my childhood. Another one is Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. I will never ever forget sitting with my dad, and I'm pretty sure my mom. In the very first 5 minutes of the movie, you have two girls popping out of the water. If you all know this movie, don't get ready to saying, the royal penis has been washed. And Eddie Murphy just kind of like, and I'll never forget that. I was probably, I don't know, 10, 11, something like that, years old. And I remember just being completely like, whoa, did they just say what I think they said? And there's just so many great one-liners in this comedy. Soul Glow. I mean, there's so many great scenes in this film. I just love it. Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy. I mean, it's not really about this. I can talk about films all day long. I got to stop myself before I go down too far down memory lane. Another movie I used to watch with my dad, Major League. Again, we talked about movies that probably weren't really appropriate for children. This is another one. These are movies I watched with my dad. Obviously, there's all kind of cussing in there and all kinds of innuendo. And I'm sitting there right in front of the TV, front and center, watching it with my dad. Right here we have Creed. Another movies, I mean, like Rambo movies, Rocky movies are like movies I used to watch with my dad, like religiously. Like in the Payne household, if a Rocky movie came on, I don't care what, if it's morning, noon, or night, if there was anything else happening, unless an IU basketball game or a Notre Dame football game, if a Rocky movie came on, all things are stopping for Rocky. And nothing's changed. Another connection with my dad is watching Creed. I just love watching these kind of movies because I know I can feel like I have, you know, a connection with my father. And then lastly, as far as like connections with my dad, is wrestling. WWF wrestling. Here we got Jake the Snake Roberts, who I met 2 weeks ago. He came to town. I got to meet him. I got a picture with him. Shook his hand. We talked. He did like a stand-up comedy show. I watched wrestling with my dad every Saturday morning. Every single WrestleMania that came out on VHS or any kind of SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. My dad would be the first one in the door to buy it or rent it from a shop. I mean, literally, everyone in the neighborhood came to our house because they knew that my dad was going to have it on VHS the very first day it came out because we didn't do pay-per-view or whatever. So it was just like, it was like an event. An event in Jeffersonville, Indiana. You would come to the Payne household and guarantee watch some wrestling on that day. And my dad and I would watch wrestling all the time. And you know what it is. If you're a boy from the 80s, you probably know if you and your dad watched wrestling, it almost goes without saying, within like minutes of wrestling started, you were down on the ground with your dad, wrestling around, fighting, jumping, kicking, punching. And my dad was no different. He was like, oh, you want to wrestle? You want to fight me? All right, come on, let's go. And I'm over here, he's like, give me your best shot. So I'm over here punching as hard as I can. And he's just like brushing it off like, ha, 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 ha. It's, it was just hilarious. And so definitely. And then last time is we do a couple movies that I enjoy in recent times that I want to show off. Rounders. This is a great 90s film about, of all things, No Limit Texas Hold'em. Cards, poker. If you have not watched this movie, guys, you are doing yourself a disservice. It is not an action movie. This is not an explosion movie. This is not something's happening every 13 seconds fast cut movie. This is a nice, methodical, slow, just unraveling of a great story with great acting over the course of like a few days in the world of poker, especially like underground poker. It is a fantastic movie. You have Matt Damon, Edward Norton, John Malkovich, John Turturro. It is a fantastic movie. Martin Landau It is awesome. I love that film. The rest of these movies are not anything that anybody's going to be surprised about. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. I always like to put it out there because a lot of people just think it's the best movie because it's a superhero movie that cusses and is rated R and is gory. But here's Deadpool. So there's that movie. I'm a big superhero fan. Another superhero movie I love, The Avengers. And when I say I don't really love Deadpool, but I just want to show it. It's because it is a superhero movie that I just collect because I'm a completist. Here's Avengers. And then the last three films, another 90s film that I love. Kevin Smith, in my opinion, almost can do no wrong. He has done a couple movies in the recent years that I'm kind of like scratching my head about. But Mallrats, for sure, along with Clerks, Chase and Amy, were like my childhood. He's just a few years older than I am. And so like he's definitely talking about generational things in his movies that I can completely relate to. Quentin Tarantino, Django Unchained, The D is Silent. Another great director that I love his films. He's a fantastic director. I just love everything about this. I love Django. This is why I honestly think this is almost, it's almost a masterpiece. The acting in this film is top notch. The subject matter is fantastic. He wants to rewrite history, which the way he does it, it's just fantastic. It is something that I just completely love. And if you know history and you know action and you know good storytelling, it's a great way that he kind of just like creates his own world. And I just love the way that I love the worlds he creates. It's a fantastic movie, and I just love that film so much. And lastly, a movie that doesn't get a lot of hype. It's a great horror movie, and I say it's horror because truly horrific things happen in this film. A lot of people don't talk about it. It's always been under the radar, but I've really enjoyed it in recent time. It's Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe. And things that happen with a turkey baster in this film are disturbing. I'll just leave it at that. So if you have not seen that film, Don't Breathe, I highly recommend that as a new modern day kind of horror flick. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Another long video, but it's one that I've enjoyed doing. So Bluejacket 66 David, I appreciate it. Response video for 250. He's already at 330 something. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, peace, love, and some hair grease, and I'm out.